Everyone, salam, namaste, adab, and welcome to today's event. Today, I'm starting this session from Delhi. I'm on travel. So if I miss anything that usually I do from there, please forgive me. And today, I am also doing an additional task here, which I usually don't do. I will be introducing the speaker and the speakers, rather, very briefly. So, the speaker today is a very senior scholar and activist within the Muslim community, Dr. M. Basheer Ahmed, who is by profession a professor of psychiatry, but he is far more known in his writings and activism within the Muslim community, or especially on the education and history of Muslim scholars in the medieval period. And he has edited a book with the name of The Rise and Fall of Muslim Civilization, Hope for Future. That's the book. And here, at present, he is a President Emeritus of Institute of Medieval and Post-Medieval Studies in Dallas, Texas. So this is his introduction, brief introduction. His book, on which he is going to talk today, the topic is Rise and Fall of Muslim Civilization, Need for Muslim to prioritize their focus on science and technology. This is a subject that is very, very dear to me, very close to my heart, because I, like many other um, educated or semi-educated um, generation, uh, feel very rather puzzled with this one basic or core question that when the Muslims in the far medieval period really showed a very bright path, and they really inspired the whole Europe or the civilized world. Suddenly, after at the top for 3 to 4 or 5 centuries, what suddenly happened? That then you see that the same Muslim civilization sort of intellectually collapsed, and it collapsed in almost like in 12th century, and then since then um, there is nothing really. It's still in 21st century. You will not see any even trait of any kind of trace of that light that was coming between those 5 centuries, ending, I think, late 15th century or so. I'm not so sure. And so Bashir Saab is going to tell us about this rise and also the fall. As a student of science and also a student of history, I will I know that it is not really so hidden. And the reason is very obvious. When Muslims had the objectivity, the rational thinking, the objective thinking, when they were very open for new ideas and they took the challenge, they were far more liberal and progressive in their thoughts. They, and very much like, inquisitive mind, all this created a atmosphere where they became the top group who could really think, who could produce, who could do new things. And then all those things started missing one by one, one by one. And by the time the Ottomans ruled half of the world, it was under the same Ottoman, the Muslim intelligentsia, all these Renaissance or the Enlightenment of Muslims started falling apart. So this is what is today the theme, probably, and this is where Dr. Basheer Ahmed will show us that who were those guys who became the role model and what happens after that, and what then we can do, how really we can recapture that imagination and start doing back something and recapture uh, the whole from where we left. And at the end of his talk, the concluding remarks will be given by another, a senior scholar activist in the same field who together have actually contributed in this theme, Dr. Nazir Ahmed, who is a very well-known senior scholar, a NASA scientist. He is an innovator. He is an author. He is a director of American Institute of Islamic History and Culture in California. She will be giving the concluding remarks. So welcome you all. And now with this rather long introductory remarks, I will now invite Dr. Basheer Ahmed, sir, to speak on the theme. So welcome, sir, Dr. Basheer Ahmed. Unmute yourself, please. Uh, Unmute yourself. We cannot hear you. No, we can't hear you.
He's muted.
You are muted. No, you are muted.
He's trying.
No, 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 you are muted. I do not know what is happening.
I asked him to unmute.
Yeah, but he was talking earlier. There was no
Okay.
issue.
Now it's
Can
good.
you can
Now
you
it's
hear
good.
me now?
Yes, yes. So please start from the beginning. Yeah, because we couldn't hear
Okay.
you.
Okay. So inshallah. Once again, Assalamu alaikum. Good morning. I sincerely appreciate Razi Sahab for inviting me to talk about this subject. And before I talk about this subject, let me take 2 minutes and give you my story why I became interested. It was mid 90s when Islamic Medical Association of North America had an international meeting in southern Spain, Granada, and I was the past president of the Islamic Medical Association. They asked me to make a presentation of medieval scholars in Spain, Muslim medieval scholars of Spain. Um, I accepted, but I realized, but my own knowledge in that field is rather limited, except a couple of names like Ibn Sina and Al-Khwarizmi. I did not know much about other scholars, and I was feeling very bad, but I had 3 months to work on that. So I took help from Google and researched intensely, and finally I prepared the paper. But I realized that many Muslims do not know about their own history, their own heritage, about the great scholars they produced 1,000 years ago, which illuminated the world with their knowledge when the world was what Europeans call the Dark Ages. So that's the beginning of my story. Now, let me just start my talk. As you all know, that Muslims before Islam, in fact, Arabs before Islam were in the state of Jahaliya. They did not know knowledge about any subject except maybe literature, poetry, satires, some mathematics, most probably because of the business, but they did know nothing. So, how this nation become interested in any subject other than math or literature. So we found that actually Quran became a source of inspiration and motivation. Let me just give you one example. The first surah revealed to our Prophet, peace be upon him, اقرأ باسم ربك الذي خلق خلق الإنسان من علق اقرأ وربك الأكرم الذي علم بالقلم علم الإنسان ما لم يعلم. Read in the name of your Lord who has created all that exists, has created man from clod. Read, and your Lord is the most generous, who has taught writing by the pen, has taught man that which he not know. Just imagine the first verse of the Quran does not talk about praise Allah, greatness of Allah, obedience of Allah. It come later. But this was saying God gave humans the knowledge. And it also says God gave human the skills of writing by using pen so that they can preserve the knowledge for the future generation. Just imagine the first verse in the holy book is talking about the knowledge, pen, and writing. This is amazing. No other holy book has done that. So, this is how Muslims became very fascinated about um, what happened. Now, we found that there are about 800 verses in the Quran dealing with the natural phenomena. Quran says, "Say Muhammad, travel on earth and see how God originates creation. So will God produce later creation, for God has power all over things." The Quran encourages scientific inquiry. The Prophet of Islam, peace be upon him, emphasizes acquiring knowledge of the nature and science for all Muslims, men and women. Think I need to- Now, one verse fascinated me. That's in Surah 16, verse 8. It says, "It is He who creates horses, mules, and asses for you to ride." That's the transportation. But He says He will create things that you do not know today. So God is predicting that there may be other forms of transportation like bicycle, automobile, planes. But this is what He's predicting 1500 years ago for humans to encourage them to start looking for that. Then it also says that if all the trees on earth were pen and 7 seas are ink, the knowledge of God's creation would not be exhausted. The Quran explicitly states that people with knowledge and understanding can comprehend message of Allah better, and it is continuously encouraged throughout the Quran. Um, so let me see. Okay, we know that science has advanced very much from the time immemorial, but still today we are in the dark in many areas, like brain function. We still don't know how thoughts are produced, how it is activated into behavior. It's a very complex science. Space, we are just beginning to investigate. In fact, we just found that there is a dark energy which is responsible for expanding the space. So the knowledge is not going to end. And no matter how much we become knowledgeable, the knowledge will never end, and we need to have a continuous effort to increase our knowledge. In fact, Quran says, "Rabbi zidni ilma," "O Lord, increase my knowledge." Now, when Muslims conquered Byzantine Empire, they had no knowledge of any other subject than, as I mentioned, literature and maybe math or something. And they become very fascinated when they see the books on science and philosophy. So they become curious and they started studying it. And so for 700 years, Muslim took lot of interest in philosophy, science, mathematics, every subject you name it, and they became expert. And they established universities in Baghdad, Cordoba, Egypt, Iran, Turkey, Afghanistan. Part of Afghanistan was in the, Uzbekistan. Abbasi Khalifas took a special interest and they established in 7th century the biggest institute in the world, Baitul Hikmah in Baghdad. They established translation bureau and they translated every possible book they can get hold of from the Greek, Latin, any European languages. The Muslim scholars not only studied the knowledge left by Indians in mathematics, for example, Chinese who discovered making the paper, Egyptians, Greek, Roman scholars, they all did their uh, translation. Then they took interest in doing their original research work and they published their own findings. So they enhanced the knowledge and created what we call the golden period of Islam, one of the finest civilization the world have seen. So we have produced hundreds and thousands of Muslims. Even if I put here about 40 names, even if I take 1 minute to talk about their work, it will take 40 minutes. And Razi Saab told me that I only have 40 minutes to complete my lecture, so I'm not going to say that. But I will tell you something. My book has given a short description, but also everybody can look at Google. In last 30 years, I saw the Google has so much information that you will never be exhausted. You simply has to put Muslim medieval scholars. They will give a list of every possible scholar. Or you can put his name of the scholar in chemistry. Jabir bin Hayyan's name will come. In physics, Ibn Haytham's name will come. So you have access to Google, and please do and read in your spare time the great work the Muslim scholars do. So I'm not going to talk about them. Now, I visited India several times, and in one of my visits in Hyderabad, I visited Islamic Heritage Institute, and I saw the posters of the great scholars. One side their picture, the other side their work. I was very fascinated. I said, I want to have copies of that. So the librarian was very hesitant to make the copies, but I was persistent. And I said, I want to take this to America and show to Americans. So they finally convinced, and I brought 25 posters from India with great scholars. You have seen, you're looking at the pictures. And I do, whenever I go to lecture, I take some of them. I don't take all 25. But in last year, in December 22, for about 6 weeks, we held an exhibition at the University of Texas, Dallas. There were 30,000 students. Of course, 90% were by non-Muslims. They visited the library and they were very fascinated because they said they never heard, they never know that Muslims have this much work. So at least I felt that our organization, Institute of Medieval and Post-Medieval Studies, on behalf of that, I presented this, and I also gave lectures periodically there. So we are disseminating the information about the great Muslim scholars' work. Now, with that introduction, you may be wondering why the dominance of Muslim scientists in every field of knowledge almost ended. I don't remember a American historian who quoted that if there would have been a Nobel Prize in 7 to 14th century, every Nobel Prize in every field would have gone to Muslims because there was nobody who was doing any work. So what happened? And this curiosity started uh, and motivating me in 1990s to learn what happened. I studied books, I studied articles. Most of the articles you will see still say that it is the Mongolian attack on Baghdad when they killed a lot of scholars, burned the books, and that was the beginning. I said, if Mongolian attack there, then people have done work in Cordoba, which is thousands of miles away in Spain. People have done work in Turkey, in Iran. Why should they stop? So I took a in-depth study and I found that about 100 years before the attack, the problem started. The philosophers and scientists emphasize that there are natural laws that run the universe. The theologians say that if natural laws run the universe, then it will restrict Allah's omnipotence. He is the one who runs the universe. Nothing can happen without his permission, without his okay. So Al Ghazali proposed that actions and reactions did not happen as a result of universal laws, but they were individual expression of Allah's will. This is where honestly the problem started. He gave a famous example. He said, if you have a matches and burn the cotton will not burn unless God permit or send his angels to facilitate that. So that restricts human thinking. He said that how can I say anything happened? Because suppose if you believe in gravity, you threw the stone up. If Allah doesn't want, Allah will never bring it down. I mean, that created a problem. However, Al Ghazali was a great scholar. I have a tremendous respect for him for giving Islam what we see today in a good structure. He explained that his major reason for this is warning the students that if you study philosophy, if you study science, be think critically, don't believe everything they say. I totally agree with that. I don't think we should. I think any hypothesis should be tried. But his conclusion that nothing will happen without Allah's will created a problem. While I believe that nothing will happen without Allah's will, I strongly believe Allah has created some natural phenomena, just like gravity, just like movement of the stars, sun, and it cannot be deviating from the, otherwise it will be a destruction. So this is what, in my opinion, was the major cause. Now, but the biggest problem was not Al-Ghazali. Al-Ghazali was a scholar. He was a teacher. He has his right to express his feelings, and I respect that. But the real problem come from Nizamul Mulk, who is a brilliant vizier of Seljuk Empire. Now, Abbasi Empire was weakening by 11th, 12th century. Seljuks were gaining power. Nizamul Mulk said to Seljuk empires that if you let people study philosophy, especially the Greek philosophy, they will promote democracy and your monarchy will be in danger, and that will be end of monarchy. Therefore, I think it is better to discourage and replace the scientific study with the religious studies. So he developed a course. It's called Nizamiya course. You'll be surprised that he developed that course in 11th century, and even today, if you go to Deobandi school, you can see the Nizamiya course which he developed is still followed. So he replaced he in every university the scientific courses with the Nizamiya courses. Then what he did was that he cut down all the support which Khalifa was giving for the scientific development, and he said, no, we will only support the religious studies. And those colleges become Ivy League colleges. Everybody who graduated from these with the Nizamiya courses, they get high positions in the government. And that's the reason gradually the scientific education become weak and weak and weak. From 12th century on, university in Islamic world gradually stopped teaching science and philosophy. And in the next 300 years, all universities gradually replaced education of science and education with a religion only. Not only they did that, but they promote only Sunni education, and that resulted in sectarian divide and sectarian problem. Now, think about this. From 15th century onwards, no university in the Muslim world taught science and philosophy. Our great grandfathers, no matter whether they live in India, Pakistan, Algeria, Tunisia, or Egypt, studied physics, chemistry, biology. There was not a single paper published. So, but between 15th and 18th century, Muslims still had great empires. Ottoman, Safavid, Mughal. They built empire on physical strength, but did not keep the advances the European scientific and industrial development. They were great armies. The Europeans were frightened with Ottomans. But in 200-300 years, when Europe was making progress in science, Ottomans did not. So what happened? When Muslims stopped teaching science, in 1483, Ottoman Empire banned printing press. It is very surprising that the Muslims used paper, which was invented by China 300 years before Europe started. But when the printing press came, we were 300 years late in using the printing press. So we cannot publish any book in the entire Ottoman Empire. Now, in 1492, the fanatics murdered astronomer Ulugh Beg in Uzbekistan. Ulugh Beg was the grandson of Timur, but he was not interested in running the government. He was a scientist. He built a beautiful observatory and doing the incredible work. But they killed him and they destroyed the university. In 1580, Taqiyuddin built a great observatory in Istanbul, and they say it was comparable to Tycho Brahe's observatory in Danish observatory. And they have better equipment, they have better scientists, but with the Sultan's order, the extremist Muslim demolished the whole laboratory. That's what I said. In 300 years, not only they stopped teaching science and technology, they demolished all the labs, observatory, everything which has to do something with the science. That behavior still continues. Look at what is happening today. In Nigeria and Pakistan, extremists say, no, no, we don't want polio immunization. People suffering from polio because they say, no, that's not Islamic. In Pakistan, some postgraduate students still believe that earthquakes are due to sinful and moral laxity. Now, you must have heard Baku Haram. What is Baku Haram? Baku Haram is an extremist organization in Nigeria which want to close all the schools teaching secular education, scientific education. In fact, they want to ban all the girl education. They have kidnapped 300 girls about 10 years ago, still some of them in captivity. And look what happened even now in few years, in last 2 3 years. Afghanistan is now ruled by Taliban. The first thing they did, they stopped girls education from high school and college. No girl can go to high school, go to college. Sixth grade is the highest they can go. This is still happening, unfortunately. So a great Nobel laureate, Abdul Salam, says, of all civilization on this planet, science is the weakest in the land of Islam. The dangers of this weakness cannot be overemphasized, since honorable survival of the society depends directly on its science and technology in the present stage. And that is very, very true. So the Muslim nations are educationally backward, behind in industrial in scientific development. Non-Muslim countries which gain independence after the Muslim countries gain independence make so much significant scientific and industrial development. China, China become independent 2 years after Pakistan, India. And where is China now? China, where people were suffering from addiction. So they have no scientific progress, and look where they have gone. Japan totally destroyed in the Second World War. South Korea was still fighting in mid 1950s. Taiwan. Taiwan is a tiny island outside the mainland China. They manufacture the chips, and they are the main supplier to the biggest government in the world, United States. In fact, about 3 weeks ago, President Biden said that he is assigning $6 billion for the Taiwanese company to start making chips in America. And where are Muslim countries? Do we do anything? Now, let us change the subject for a second. In last 200 years, scientific discoveries, how it is helping humanity. Electricity. It is not only just um, removing the darkness, but all your equipment is running. Oven, washer, dryer, vacuum cleaner, telephones, computers, everything. Big industries are on electricity. If you don't have electricity for 2 days, what will happen? I think we all will go into panic. Transportation. Look at in 200 years, we started with bicycles, it did go into automobile, trains, from train to plane, and now space. Mass communication, internet, iPhone, Facebook, WhatsApp. I will not go detail, just look at iPhone. iPhone is your small computer in your hand. In fact, your wristwatch become a small computer. If I take iPhone from you for one day, what will happen? I think you will become panic because we depend so much on everything on iPhone. Every few minutes we look at our iPhone. And then look at the communication. For example, I remember 60, 70 years ago, if we have to call to America, you have to book the call and wait for 12 hours, 24 hours. Today, with WhatsApp, not only you can call immediately, but also It's free. You can sit here and watch a wedding ceremony in India, Pakistan, Algeria, anywhere. Now, we conquer all deadly diseases like tuberculosis. It's not there anymore. People used to die, hundreds of them. When I was growing up, I know tuberculosis means death, just like cancer is today. Polio, smallpox, cholera, plague, typhoid, pneumonia, malaria, they don't exist anymore. X-rays are helping us to diagnose better. Diabetes and heart disease, people used to die at the age of 50, 60. Today they can live 100 years if they follow the doctor's directions, advice, compliance. They will live a normal life. We make advances in surgical treatment, leave it in the complex. Just look at the appendix and gallbladder. We used to have big incision in our tummy. Now, two small holes, you can take the gallbladder out. Now, even the minor things like hearing aid, glasses are making our life comfortable. GPS. Now, to go to Chicago about 20 years ago, I had to have a big map and mark all the directions. I don't have to do anything. Now our life become on GPS also. Anywhere you go in your own town, you just put address, forget about it. It will take you right up to the door. Now, robots are making human life less fatigues. And today, artificial intelligence is started in last couple of years is unimaginably what they are doing. It is. So the science become integral part of human life. One question I have: did Muslims invent any of the above innovations? If not, why? The 1.7 billion, 25% of the world population. We have 1% Muslim scientists, 6% scientific publication, 0.5% GDP on research, whereas the Western countries spend 10%. Our literacy rate is 40%, whereas in non-Muslim countries, 90%. So the poverty, the backwardness is lack of education, lack of industrial development. 1.7 billion Muslim produced 4 Nobel laureates in last 30 years. Abdul Salam, Ahmed Zuwail, Aziz Sankar, and more recently you might not have heard Mungo Bandawi from Tunisia. But 2 laureates in last 100 years. Now, in 18th and 19th century, in fact, colonialists, Europeans introduced science in Muslim countries. Muslim did not accept. I don't want to go into detail because I have very limited time, but just give one example. Sir Syed Ahmed Khan, founder of Aligarh University, take a daring step to introduce English and science in the universities. All religious leaders opposed that. This called him infidel. In fact, what I heard, some of them have gone to Saudi Arabia, get a fatwa for his execution because he is infidel. And I studied in depth Sir Sayyid Ahmed Khan, and I found that he has a extremely difficult time. He was humiliated. They throw X on him when he tried to raise funds, but he was persistent. Because of that, we have seen some educated Muslims in India and Pakistan. So this is our history. So now the last section. What we need to do, increase the scientific education. The basic thing is Muslims have to develop critical thinking and ijtihad. They both are completely abolished. Without critical thinking, without ijtihad, we cannot make any progress. Now, Some rich Gulf countries utilizing the new technology um, of the West much quicker than the West. If you go to Dubai, that was I was asking. If you see the advances they have making, the technology using, it's amazing. It looks like much advanced city than any American city. Recently, they opened that space museum. I just saw the videos. It's amazing. So they are using the Western technology more than the West is using, but they do not give priority for industrial development. They are importing everything. They do not spend enough funds to develop educational institutions for science and technology. According to United Nations Development Fund, Arab rulers invest much of their oil money in United States and other foreign countries rather than using it to develop their own nations. It is a sad part. So the Gulf countries, my understanding, in last 50 years, they spend a lot of money, but unfortunately, after 50 years, the Muslim world has failed to build a first class institution for science and technology. They have money, but not interest, no motivation. They are buying science and technology rather than producing it. Try to understand that. They're buying it. It's easy to buy. So then what happened in their own country, whether it is Pakistan or Saudi Arab or Gulf, people who are naturally want to do some research, have natural tendency and desire, they have to go to foreign countries. They go to America and Europe to do their research. And people who have already done research like in Stanford, Oxford, Cambridge, Harvard, they have hard time going back to their own country because they don't have the same intellectual freedom as they have in this country. These are the these are the reasons. Unless these are changed, nothing can be changed. Nothing can be changed. So what we need to do to increase scientific education? Go back to our own Quran. See what Quran says. We preoccupied with duality of dunya and akhirat. We focus only on akhirat because we said this is a short life. Why you want to just do the prayers what 5 times, zakat and go to Hajj? You are in Jannah, and that's what you need to do. And that's what they stop thinking altogether. Unfortunately, that's what the message I get it all the time. But in Quran, dunya and akhirat come 115 times each. Look at dua. Rabbana atina fid dunya hasnataw wa fil akhirati hasnataw. You do every day. It says dunya hasnataw and then akhirat hasnataw. So Quran is not saying that. We are saying that. We must encourage people to take advantage of their brain power, which unfortunately not the case. We must promote the integrated system of education. Muslims can do that. They keep the balance between materialistic and spiritual aspect in purpose of human creation. Accumulation of the wealth should not become the primary goal of education, and science should not be developed for destructive purposes. This is what the Muslim goal should be. Now, studying in depth about hundreds of scholars, I found there was a collaboration between faith and science, which produced advances in science and philosophy during the Middle Ages. Ibn Sina was studying, he said, when I worry about some issue I cannot resolve it, I go to masjid, I pray, I meditate, I think, and then I get solution. They had a strong faith. But our clericals said that our ritualistic Islam will is the solution for your internal life, and they have the power. They have the mic, they have the convocation, they have the power. Nobody has that. Look at humbleism. They emphasize on importance of adhering to the Quran literally meanings and Sunnah's emphasis on the religious purity. They discourage intellectual diversity and critical thinking. Now, religious purity is also resulting in sectarian divide. So, think about that. In recent centuries, humbleism has been adopted by Wahhabism, and Wahhabism is spread like a wildfire in the last 100 years. Now, the Saudi government is suppressing that, but I will not go into that discussion. However, those teachings contradict Quranic teachings, which urge humanity to think critically, reflect deeply, and engage in intellectual reasoning. So, a renowned Islamic scholar, Professor Khalid Abdul Fadl at the University for California, he emphasizes the importance of reason, critical thinking, and historical context in understanding the Quran message. The Quran is a guide for addressing contemporary challenges. That's what we need to understand Quran in 20th century. And this is the last thing I want to mention to you for you to think about it. For example, Islam is the last religion. Prophet of the Islam is the last prophet. However, the jurisprudent scholars, interpreters like Imam Hanifa, Shafi'i, Maliki, Hanbali, should they be the last interpreters? Shouldn't we have any more like them? Did Quran stop at that time? Because we don't think. We stop critical thinking. That's the problem. I'm saying that's my personal opinion. The word takaffur often appears in the Quran, meaning reasoning and critical thinking. Takaffur. The Quran said that believers have been sent for betterment of the humanity. What are we doing for betterment of humanity? I gave example in 200 years how science helped you and I, everybody living on this planet. Why Muslims did not do that? God has given humans gift of intelligence, not to just Christians. And we prove that our own scholars use that God-given intelligence to do the wonderful work. And uh, they give rational thinking, advise Muslim for amal salihat, which appears more than waqimus salata wa aqatu zakat. With all the wealth at our command, we still depend heavily on Western technology for transportation, communication, healthcare, everything you name it. Our life totally depends upon the technology developed by non-Muslim countries. Why not we do that? So, in my closing remark, I can say that the Quran directs us to use scientific discoveries, explore nature created by God to improve human condition, and that's what I call amale salihat. We should be regarded, amale salihat should be regarded another form of worship. Just imagine if the iPhone is giving you comfort in life, make you less anxious, make you functioning better. Is that not amal salihat? Is that not something you are serving humanity? Did we ever hear this in our mosque? No, we don't, because we don't want to dilute. We say no, only prayers and the five pillars, and that will be for your eternal life. Now, Quranic word also say that falul al khair, doing good things, also appear in the Quran many times. Khair refers to broadly anything that lead to religious or worldly betterment. These benefits are not exclusive to Muslims, they are intent for humanity. We must share information of our ancestors' accomplishments in science and philosophy. If they can do it, we can do it too. So, I can just say that at least in Dallas, we have a couple of institution working on that. Discovery STEM started in 2016 in Dallas, and ITCON is started 2022. They are both trying to take middle school, high school student and develop sense of critical thinking, innovation, and also robotic science. So they are making a humble effort, but it's not progressing very well. So I am hoping that I have given you my ideas. Some may be very controversial, some you may not agree, that's perfectly fine. But I have spent last 30 years and I'm continuously trying to promote that science is absolutely necessary for Muslims, and science is not against Islam. Thank you very much, Dr. Ali Saab and everybody else for listening patiently. And I have given my name, phone number, email address. If you have any comment, please write to me, and I will be happy to answer any advice, any criticism. Uh, in fact, I appreciate criticism because that will improve my own thinking. So, thank you very much. One thing I want to tell again that I'm getting old and my hearing is not very good. So, if you have a question and if you can put in the comment section, I'll be happy to answer. Or Razi Saab can just repeat and I will write and then I will try to answer. Thank you very much. I appreciate. May Allah
Thank you
bless.
so much. Thank you so much, Bashir Saab. It was very inspiring and very revealing and very much like, challenging us for introspection. So let us go for the concluding remark by your colleague who has participated in your activism very much, Dr. Nazir Ahmed, Professor Nazir Ahmed Saab. Make it brief, Nazir Saab, so that we can have a lot of question answer.
Sure.
Thank you.
About 8 to 9 minutes, I think it will take.
नहीं नहीं एक लाइन में नहीं चलेगा और एक जी more than one line is needed for you from you.
Well, I'll try. Thank you, Razi Saab. The presentation by our distinguished professor, Dr. Basheer Ahmed, was indeed compelling and thought-provoking. He has raised some profound questions, and I'll add some more questions to make this discussion meaningful and exciting. What is a civilization? What are its metrics and its measures? What makes a civilization called Muslim? There are 1.8 billion Muslims on this planet living in different regions, each with its own historical trajectory. Would a single definition be acceptable to a Nigerian, an Iranian, and a Chinese? As we all know, the Muslim civilization appeared as a flash of light on the canvas of world history in the 7th century. At its core was faith in the idea of Tawheed. Humankind was honored to serve and to know the truth through signs in nature and the soul. As the Quran declares, سَنُرِيهِمْ آيَاتِنَا فِي الْآفَاقِ وَفِي أَنفُسِهِمْ حَتَّى يَتَبَيَّنَهُمُ الْحَقُّ. Soon shall I show them my signs on the horizon and within their own souls until it's clear to them that it is the truth. Impelled by their faith, the early Muslims threw themselves into the process of history. Their confidence made them open to ideas from the East and the West. The establishment of Baitul Hikmah in Baghdad, the eruption of Mutazilite, the bruising encounter with the Muslim orthodoxy, Al-Ghazali's repudiation of the philosophers, counter-arguments of Ibn Rushd, all then known to this distinguished audience. Some students of history have claimed that the decay of Muslim science dates from the expulsion of Mutazilites from the courts of Baghdad. But isn't it significant that the inductive scientific method was invented, developed, and used by the Muslims after the expulsion of the Mutazilites from the Abbasid courts. Similarly, others have argued that Al-Ghazali's dialectic was responsible for the decay of science in Islamic civilization. A counter-argument is that the pursuit of science and technology did not die out with Al-Ghazali. Indeed, astronomy, mathematics, art, and architecture continued to flourish well into the 18th century. The rockets of Tipu Sultan were so advanced that they were used in the Napoleonic Wars in Europe. The usage in the Anglo-American War of 1812, during the siege of Baltimore, the bombardment of Fort McHenry provided the inspiration for the composition of the American national anthem, the Star-Spangled Banner, by Francis Scott Key in 1814. So the question remains, if it was not the expulsion of the Mutazilis or the dialectic of Al-Ghazali, what brought about the fall of Islamic civilization? In the 13th century, the Muslim world faced catastrophic invasions, both from the Mongols and from the Crusaders. Then, after the Mongol invasions, there began an intense competition between the Buddhists, the Greek Orthodox Church based in Constantinople, the Latin Church based in Rome, and the Muslims for the soul of the Mongols. The Muslim Sufis won the contest. Some historians date the Muslim civilization decay from the Mongolian invasions of the 13th century. But if the Mongols themselves converted to Islam, became its flag bearers, and the founders of new Islamic empires, how can we argue that the Mongolian invasions are responsible for the fall of Muslim civilization? Out of the ashes of the Mongol Tartar invasions came the Ottoman, the Safavid, and the Mongol empires. The Islam that emerged was a spiritual, inclusive, tolerant, and universal Islam. Akbar, the great Mughal, was one of his great products. It was this Sufi Islam that spread throughout the subcontinent, India, Pakistan, Southeastern Europe, Sub-Saharan Africa, Indonesian islands. If there be a second golden age in Islam, it was the period between 1550 and 1650. So we may ask here again, if the innate spirituality of Islam provided a life raft for Muslims in the 13th century, could it do it again today in a paradigm of global material civilization where the dominant issues are economic? Now, it's a critical point. The 6-year period between 1683 and 1689 is pivotal to understanding the decay of Muslim civilizations. 3 epic events transpired during these momentous 6 years. 1, Sir Isaac Newton published his laws of motion in England. 2, the Ottoman armies retreated from the Second Siege of Vienna. 3rd, in India, Aurangzeb published his Futuwat-e-Alamgiri. Islamic history changed from taqwa to fatwa. So the question before us is, to what extent is the spread of extremism responsible for the decay of Islamic civilization? Civilizations implode from within. As Toynbee said, civilizations do not die by suicide. No, civilizations die by suicide, not by murder. If the fall of Islamic civilization more a product of ethical implosion than a deficiency of scientific prowess is something for us to discuss. As Allama Iqbal said in Bange Dara, Bue gul le gayi bayrun chaman raz chaman kya khiyamat hai kya khud phool hai ghumaz chaman. Conclusion: isn't a civilizational transformation multidimensional? Along with science and technology, isn't character the backbone of such a transformation? I summarize my observation with the acronym SEEK, where the S stands for science, spirituality, and service. The E stands for education in a broad sense. The second E for economics, and the C stands for cooperation and character. For those who ask what spirituality is, it's Iman, Allah, Ihsan. I highly recommend everyone to read Dr. Basheer's book. It's indeed thought-provoking, and I'm sure we'll have a very lively discussion. Thank you again.
Thank you, Nazir Saab. Thank you so much. And now, before we enter into question answer, Dr. Rafat will show you some announcements for the
Sure.
coming
So,
year,
Razi
and
bhai,
then
please
he will moderate it. Yeah.
ask or request Bashir Saab to stop sharing his screen.
Bashir Saab, Dr. Bashir,
Yes.
Please
can you
stop.
take off your screen share?
Is it
Can you
possible
stop
that
your
they
screen
can write
sharing?
the comment, because my hearing is not very good? So either Razi sab repeat that, or if they can write on the comment, I will be happy to answer any question.
Yes, Bashir Saab, can you stop sharing the slide so that we can show other things?
Okay,
Can you stop sharing?
I will remove the slides.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Yes, I will.
Okay. So let me share what happened. Oh, this is something bizarre. Okay.
We can hear you.
No, that's good.
Okay,
Please go ahead, Razi bhai.
so this is the announcement, which is unusual announcement in the sense that we will not have 3 Saturdays any event. December 21st, December 28th, and January 4th. We are resuming on Saturday, January 11th, with a theme that Rafat is showing in the next poster. Rafat, this the last poster, and after that we. And here, January 11th, we have a very well-known scholar from Jamia, and he's going to talk on the political future of Indian Muslim. Actually, his book Shikwa Hind, just released last year, is making a big news everywhere. He had very successful sessions in India, and he is going in the West talk about this book. So he is going to take from that book the theme, the political future of Indian Muslim, Dr. Mujibur Rahman, actually, from Jamia on January 11th. Now over to Rafat, Dr. Rafat Hussain for moderating the question answer. I can see some hands, and there is one very senior advocate from Supreme Court, I think, from Mr. Ashok Arora, who is also joining today. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Raziuddin. And the question and answer session is open now. Before we begin the session, I'd like to thank all three speakers, Dr. Basheer Ahmed and Dr. Raziuddin for the introduction, and Dr. Nazir Ahmed for concluding remarks. So it has been a fascinating talk. Let's see the questions. So you can raise your digital hand or put your comment or question in the chat box. Of course, there are a lot of comments already, but no questions. So I am going to begin from the raised hand. Imtiaz Saab.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you, Dr. Basheer Ahmed, for your very informative and well-researched presentation. And thank you, Nazir Sahab, for your excellent summarization and comments. My question is that the legacy of Imam Ghazali and Nizamul Mulk is still a matter of debate and discussion. Some believe that Imam Ghazali had a negative impact on science and technology for the negative impact on Muslims for pursuit of science and technology. What is your opinion about it?
Let me just respond briefly. And Imam Ghazali did not openly said that he want to stop science and philosophy, but his main comment that there are no natural laws, everything depends upon God's will, restrict human thinking. And that is the major cause, because if people cannot, people have a hypothesis, they prove, if it is true today, it has to be true tomorrow. But if you say no, God can change that, then you cannot make any advance. That is my major concern. So it is not his expertise, his scholarly work, and his contribution to Islam. My major concern is that when you restrict human thinking, then you cannot have science.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ahmed. The next person is Dr. Syed Ahmed.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Basheer Ahmed, for your scholarly talk. I have a question, and I wonder, and I'm sure a lot of other people wonder about it, that in South Asia, in particular, we tend to lump together all Muslims and Muslim countries. Whatever may have been the case in the Middle Ages, it's clear from Morocco to Indonesia, very different people, different problems, and different solutions too. Can we deal science or any other basis on Islamic countries or Islamic Ummah? Because it is no such thing, and has not been for a long time. The second thing is, why can we not dissociate science and secular issues? Why everything has to be ultimately rooted into religion? For example, your own very illustrious talk and your book, scholarly, and ultimately it is rooted in, appeals to, or rooted into religion. Everything has to be certified by religious injunctions. Is there a possibility of separating these two, that we can, as you know, in Europe, for longest time, there was Enlightenment, Renaissance, and all that. You wouldn't imagine European or even American now invoking religion to justify science or any issues of science. Thank you. I don't know whether you are able to hear what I said.
Maybe Nazir Sahab explained, but I can just start and I will give it to Brother Nazir. Um, the reason we bring religion is just to show that religion is not the obstruction in scientific progress. Religion does not inhibit scientific progress. That's the reason we quote it. It doesn't mean that we have to have sanction for religion. Science is totally independent. The thinkers are independent. They just have to have a freedom to think and make advances, knowing that religion is not the obstruction. So that's my understanding, but I will let Nazir Saab explain that better.
It's a great question. It goes back to the epistemology of knowledge. The tree of knowledge itself. What's the function of knowledge? What's the function of a civilization? Summarily, I look upon knowledge as the tree of knowledge, starting with revealed knowledge, divided into two major branches: that which is perceived by the heart, that which is perceived by the mind and the body. That which is perceived by the mind and the body can be transmitted. There's scientific knowledge. Now, if the purpose of religion is to find God, as is revealed in the Quran, the purpose of creation, that is the purpose of the creating beings of fire and beings of clay, is to find God. If the purpose of science is to find the truth, then God is the truth. And religion, as we understand it, necessarily enters into the picture, because all knowledge originates from God and goes back to him. Now, from our perspective, that's when I say our, I mean to say I'm a Muslim, so I'm putting my hat on as a Muslim. That knowledge, the revealed knowledge, pervades all knowledge, and scientific knowledge, especially from a quantum mechanics point of view. Now we can reconcile the dialectic between Al-Ghazali and Ibn Rushd. It is possible to show how it is that we can believe in the will of God as well as the will of man. That's a different issue. So the answer to your question, the distinguished professor, I respect his thinking all along, that for us, necessarily, all knowledge, since it starts from the creator, goes back to him, science ultimately leads to him. So the purpose of science is to find the truth, and God is the truth. And for us, again, science is not deterministic. سنريهم آياتنا في الآفاق وفي أنفسهم حتى يتبين لهم الحق. In other words, is a science in nature. We look at science. We look at science in the trees and the birds and in each of us, in history, humankind, etc. Each sign opens up a different window, and that window opens up another window. The truth is not known. So the ultimate purpose of science is to find God. So religion is there, whether or not we like it, because it starts from the epistemology of knowledge, because God taught all the names to Adam, and Adam's children, all of us know it because he has taught it to us. It's a very complex issue. Inshallah, we'll communicate with each other, Professor Sahab.
Thank you. Thank you both. The next person is Ashok Arora.
Thank
Please.
you, brother. Thank you, Dr. Basheer. My name is Ashok. I practice in Supreme Court of India, but I practice online. I am doing my LLM studies in New York. I wish I was aware. I was in Dallas for more than a year. I could meet you. Coming to the question, my question starts with my friendship. I'm very happy that you talked about Dr. Syed Ahmed and AMU. I feel indebted to AMU that for last 45 years, I have my friends from AMU and they have helped me creating a world record in winning elections in Supreme Court bar. My question is that many scholars, each profession, journalism, doctor, medicine, lawyers, I have my Muslim friends who excel, actually, they are best of the world. Despite having best professionals in every profession, do you think it is establishment, or do you think the scholars itself failed to do what you are saying, that what is said in first surah, read, write? So we have failed to educate the masses. I mean, do you feel, because I share something very personal with you. I was called to speak on triple talaq, and I said I normally don't talk about religion, but I must tell you that last 45 years, I have so many friends in Muslims. Each of my friend, but to talk of talaq, they can't even talk tea against their wife. They are so decent. So where the society has failed, or establishment or scholars have failed to give that knowledge to masses? Why the general class is not happy? When we are having best in every profession, but general class is not happy. They are not doing well, I am sorry to say. Have we failed to educate general masses, the first surah of Islam?
Razi Sahab, I had some difficulty because of my hearing. I think he made good comments, but can you write a specific question? I'll be happy
I'll
to
email you,
answer.
sir. I'll email you. I'll be in touch. No issue. I will email you.
Let me just say it loudly. I can try, or Rafat can try. What Arora Sahib is just saying, that probably individually we are very competent Muslims. Individual Muslims probably professionally are very competent, very educated, and also. But as a community, they seem to be, as I could guess,
Yes,
but
yes.
yes, as a community, they seem to be not really doing so well. So why our individual successes and our competency, individual competencies, did not really help raise the community's level of consciousness or education? Did we fail our own community?
I
Nazir
Brother
Saab, if he
Yes.
has a problem,
Ahmad,
you
Yes.
are.
I'm
Nazir
really
Ahmad Saab,
sorry
no,
about
no,
that.
Yeah, yeah, that's
Brother
fine.
Nazir,
That's
you
fine.
want to?
that's
Yeah,
okay.
and please,
Yeah.
Naz-
please do it briefly. Yeah.
Nazir Ahmad Saab, can you please?
Yeah.
Yes. Quick. The answer to the second part of the question, have we failed? Yes, miserably so. Why is it so? Because Islam has become a Islam that is historical Islam, not that's based upon revelation. That, in brief, is the answer. I put my finger on, for instance, the last part of the 17th century when it started with Aurangzeb. I'm sorry to say that it started in India, and that was the reason India was the first great non-Muslim civilization to fall to the West. Yes, we have failed. Yes, Islam has been hijacked by the established and professional establishment. And yes, those who know have failed to communicate the real essence of faith, which is to serve, know God, serve, know God, serve, enjoin what is good and forbid what is evil. We have forgotten that.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you. Thank you,
you.
sir. Thank you so much.
Okay,
I'll email
so-
you, Dr. Bashir. I'll email you also. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. And the next question is from Tariq Faruqi from a chat box. So science and technology, let me speak loudly. Science and technology progress requires free inquiry and innovative thinking. Religiosity requires rigid dogma, blind faith, and acceptance of the status quo. How do we reconcile the stark difference to make progress? How was it done in earlier phases of Islamic history?
I think that's a very interesting question. The in-depth study of 700 years of work tells me that there was a coordination, cooperation, in-depth understanding between faith and science, and they totally separate that. Faith is the belief in God, and science is following one of the God's commandments to make the society, the humans, for better life. So I think uh, sometimes people misunderstand. They look Quran for the scientific guidance. Quran is not the book of science. Quran is the book of guidance. Quran is the book how to live the life in this world. And science is making life better. And what religion should influence that we should use science for betterment of humanity, not destruction of the humanity. So there was a quite clear relationship. The earlier scientists proved to us that by taking faith in the proper perspective, the way the God wanted, you can improve the condition. So I'm sorry, I may not have the good understanding of the question, but that's the best I can answer. But please,
Thank
Dr.
you.
Nazir, you can expand that.
Yeah, one sentence answer to it. Religion and science are not incompatible.
Right.
Indeed, science leads to faith. A true scientist, and I'm a scientist by training. I have written over 100 papers presented before the National Academy of Sciences. I have 12 United States patents, etc., etc. Never have I felt that my faith was an impediment. It goes back to the difference between an inductive and deductive approach. Science is bottoms up. We must engage society. We must engage nature. We must be tolerant. We must understand what nature is. And that leads to a betterment, a deepening of faith. Does not matter what faith it is. It's true of all faiths, not just Islam. If we truly understand our faith, that if we truly understand science, it reinforces our faith. A Hindu
Okay.
would be a better Hindu. A Christian would be a better Christian. A Muslim would be a better Muslim.
Okay, good.
Let me just expand 1 second. If you look at the history of Christianity, in about 3rd century, the Christian theologian said, if something is not in the Bible, it cannot be correct. So they stopped teaching science. They completely abolished, they burned the books of the philosophy, they burned great libraries in Alexandria, and many scientists had to leave and go to Jandeshpur in what you call Iran to continue their work. Now, the same thing happened to the Muslims. So it is not the correct understanding of the religion, misunderstanding of the religion, as Dr. Nazir pointed out. In 16th century, the Christians were influenced by the Muslim writing, especially Ibn Rushd, and that became the foundation for Renaissance, and that's how their scientific progress is start making. So I think if we can understand religion contemporarily, and as Dr. Abul Fadl mentioned, that study Quran to apply in 21st century, not in 7th century, I think we have a better understanding and we will not have that conflict. Thank you.
Okay, okay, thank you.
Thank you. There was their hand raised by iPhone. I think it's anyway, it's not there anymore. So next person is Noah Adin, please. Noah Adin.
Yes. Assalamu alaikum. I think most people on this call are Indian or Indian origin. I'm Turkish American. I received this announcement from a friend, Indian friend, because he knew that I'm interested in this field. I'm a mathematician. So I made a lot of comments on the chat about this topic because I'm really interested. And I raised my hand to respond to an earlier question. And also now it is also related to more recent comments. You know, does one have to be religious to do science? You know, can we separate science and religion? Of course, one does not have to be religious to do science. And we have plenty of examples of that. Many non-religious people and atheists and doing a lot of science. That's okay. But my point is that as Muslims, we have such a strong motivation to do science if we actually understand the message of Quran correctly. So we should actually be super motivated to do science because number one, there is such a tremendous emphasis on critical thinking in the Quran, right? How many times Quran says, أَفَلَمْ تَكُونُوا تَعْقِلُونَ? Are you not going to use your mind? Number two, if you know, one of the most important concepts in the Quran is that of ayat or ayat. And the ayat do not always refer to the ayat of Quran. In fact, most of the time, ayat in the Quran refers to the signs of Allah in the universe. So many times in the Quran, Allah says, the earth and the heavens are full of ayat for the people of understanding. So doing science is nothing other than trying to understand this ayatullah everywhere in the universe. So doing science not only does not conflict with Quran, with the Quranic teaching, but it is actually so strongly encouraged, right? And we are urged to study ayatullah, and this is exactly what the science is. Unfortunately, we Muslims lost this understanding of Quran, right? It is so clearly in the Quran, right? So there are so many verses that start with وَمِنْ آيَاتِهِ, and what comes after it? A lot of things in the heavens and the earth and the mountains and the sea, right? Everywhere is full of ayatullah. For whom? For us, for intelligent human beings. Allah gave us this intelligence to study His ayatullah everywhere, and we just lost it, you know? And nobody else, you know, with the correct understanding of Quran, nobody else should be more motivated to do science than Muslims. So it bothers me so much that we lost this understanding while it is so clearly in the Quran, right? And some of the early scholars like Al-Biruni clearly states that it was verse number 191 from Surah Ali Imran that motivated him to do science, right? Inna fi khalqi samawati wal ardi the ayatin ulil albab, right? So verses like this motivated early scholars to do science, and it is still valid, right? It is such a strong urge and emphasis and encouragement in the Quran to do science for us. It is astonishing that we are missing this, right? It is just astonishing, you know. So that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you for your comment. The next question is from Dr. Ayaz Ahmed from the chat box. When apparently the problem began with philosophy, why not focus on philosophy rather than science? One, philosophical puzzles are resolved, which include philosophy of religion as well as philosophy of science. The latter two would flourish. What do you think? Nazir Saab or Basheer Saab?
Well, you know, it depends on where you want to study. You want to put the horse before the cart or the cart before the horse. Are you going to take an inductive approach or a deductive approach? The Quran and Islam, indeed, all religions are inductive, bottoms up. Start with people, be good to people, serve people, look at nature, study from nature, and it leads to a belief in God. But if you start from the top and then start to work down as does philosophy, see, the bottom line, the reason the Mutazilites, the philosophers, fell on the face was their misunderstanding of time. They did not understand what time was. They thought time was linear, then they thought it was discrete, etc. Time is nothing of that. Time is a gift. In the Quran, there are at least 15 different descriptions of time. So the answer to your question, sir, is that it depends on where you start. I would recommend to all of my colleagues and everyone is to start from the bottom. Be good to your neighbor. Serve your neighbor. Look at the flight of the birds. Look at how things move. Learn from it. And that points to the creator, not the other way around.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Ashraf Fahmi Saab.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Jazakumullah khair. Jazakumullah khair, brother, for all this work. I am not a scholar, but alhamdulillah, I'm working in da'wah, and I talk to a lot of people who come from the Christian world. And I present my argument about science. This does not happen often, of course, but when it comes up that, and I would like your opinion or suggestion or guidance for this, that for the Western world, the reason why science seemed to need it to be separated from religion is because in the Christian world, in earlier Europe, the reason why science did not advance is because the church understanding of their scriptures and that whatever comes against the scripture, they prevent it, put it down. They didn't want to accept it. They want to burn the person like Galileo and all that. But because of these wrong scientific facts found in the Bible, then they could not say the religion agrees with science. This is their logic, and that's how they ended up separating. So yes, religion is against science if we're talking about that religion that is against science, which in this case, I mean the Bible. So there is a difference when we say religion. This is my point here. I'm asking your guidance. Can I use this argument? Then when we say religion and science, we should not generalize. So there are religions, like my understanding about the Bible, it says, these things are wrong, don't do these things, you cannot know God this way, just have blind faith. But in Islam, it's different. So we have to distinguish when we say Islam is not against science versus religion is not against science. Because when we say religion, that means we're saying like people who worship cows, for example. Now, I don't know what they say about science in this religion, but I'm sure it does not say a whole lot. So can you guys, give me some guidance? Jazakumullah.
Okay, this question keeps coming back, whether the science is compatible with religion or they should be separate. Nazir, sir, go ahead.
Well, first of all, we should be careful when we talk about other faiths. You cannot understand what is in the faith until you get into the faith. Very briefly, in Christianity, the separation happened with the writings of St. Thomas Aquinas in the 12th century. And from then on, the developments in Italy and in Central Europe, they're all men known to the people. All faiths have their own trajectory towards the truth. All I can talk about is our own faith. Our own faith asks us to start from the bottom. Start with Allah is Rabbul Alameen. The first introduction of God was Rabbul Alameen, not Allah, meaning He is the provider, He is the sustainer, He is the creator. Look at creation. Look at your neighbor. Again, I go back to it. If everyone served everyone else, as the Quran asks us, so there would be no war in the world. If everyone understood what science was all about, science is only a method, a process, and that ultimately leads to the truth. That's all science is. It's based upon certain assumptions. So you make some assumptions, then the deductions are valid. If you study, for instance, at the higher institutes like MIT or Caltech, they go into the assumptions of science. What are the assumptions on which you're basing your science? If the assumption is invalid, everything is invalid. So, bottom line, science and religion are not incompatible. Indeed, the objective of both science and faith is the same, namely discovery of the truth, which is transcendent. You will never reach it. It's a continuous process until the end of times. And all human beings are participating in it. They're all brothers and sisters, different paths that lead to the same end.
Thank you.
So that made me to ask a question. Okay, they are not incompatible, but if they are separate, for example, religion is on its own place and the science is independent, can the science survive?
Of course it can survive. It has survived like this. And the science that we all learn, books, is separated from religion. That's what we came here to America to learn. Of course it can survive, but it goes back to what we call maqasid, the purpose. What is the purpose of being human? What's the purpose of a civilization? What is the purpose of religion? What's the purpose? This is the question.
Yeah, that is a separate question. Okay, then let me Okay, mute yourself, please. Okay, Rajaullah Qureshi Saab, although he has a question there in the comment box, but please go ahead and ask.
Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum
Wa alaikum salam.
I have already, I already put down, I'm sorry, I think this one is, let me get out of this. Okay. I put down my question actually with a brief comment already. It addressed to Dr. Basheer Ahmed. I wasn't aware that if I address it to Dr. Basheer Ahmed, it will go to everyone too. So somehow I ended up putting it twice. So just for my understanding, if we address to the speaker, it will be displayed to you too. Dr. Ravi?
Yeah,
Can you-
we missed your last part. Please go ahead. Say again.
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. My first question, it's repeated 2-3 times. I'm seeing there in the comment that if we address anything to the speaker, will it be always available to everyone else also? Because I thought it's not, so I had to do it twice.
No, it will be because once the recording is available.
All right. Okay. So now coming to I have briefly commented, of course, Dr. Basheer Ahmed's whole presentation is very enlightening and very timely. I wrote there and I just gave a passing comment. Many of us may not be aware of in the audience that about a few decades back, I ran into a book in the library. It was written by all Western scholars. It was compiled by several scholars. And I was shocked to learn about it. I was not aware of it. Most was, even if I consider myself educated, I've got degrees and all that. But I wasn't aware of that. They said these scholars actually determined that there was a 500-year period in the history, few decades back, which ended, that every 50 years they tried to determine the best scientist. And to my surprise, they say in the entire 500-year period, every 50 years, the best scientist was a Muslim. And that was a revelation to me. So I used to teach Sunday school and I started telling them, we should be, but then we should not live in the past glory. We have to see what went wrong. So anyway, that's the comment I wanted to make. But my question is, to me, the only solution, but again, I stand to be corrected, is that every one of the Muslims need to relate directly to the sources in addition to learning all other things, the commentaries and learning, listening to ulama and all that. And so that's my question is, do you agree that we all Muslims should focus, try to the best they can? Today, so many translations are available and so many commentaries. Every year they have more than one translation coming. So always we've been told, oh, until you know not only the Arabic, but the classical Arabic, you shouldn't even approach Quran. And I have many instances where people were stopped by scholars. Oh, don't study.
Okay.
So,
Just briefly make the
so my question is,
this is too long.
do you think
Please.
Dr. Basheer Ahmed should really emphasize and how to do it?
Okay, Mr. Qureshi, thank you very much for writing the comment. I read your comments and I think I will try and respond to the question you raised in the comment. And one of the questions you raised was, shouldn't the Muslim connect directly to the Quran and Sunnah instead of dependence on clergy? Now, when I study our history, I think the way we are practicing Islam is not very different, and sometimes, in my opinion, that's my personal opinion, contradictory to the Islamic principles. Recently, I participated in a seminar on blasphemy, and I quoted 11 verses of the Quran which prohibit any punishment, and we are doing that. That is what Islam is totally going in the wrong direction, because they just quote some sunnah, some imam's fatwa, but they neglect what Quran says.
All right.
The question you have is that why not we go to the Quran? Because our clergies have dominated everything, and they said that you follow what we say because you may not have the good understanding, even understand the Quran. So that's the problem.
Right.
So unless we have a movement, it will be hard.
Thank you.
A brief comment on that.
I think we are totally deviating. It has become a a seminar on Quran and religion rather than what we are trying to say. I mean, I must say this thing, that the theme and topic was how Muslims can cope with today's progress as we are falling apart. And we really eventually centered around religiosity, as if we are so over obsessed, we cannot separate Quran from our daily research. I mean, this is as if it will be a sin. And that's what the real problem here is, I think. Dr.
But
Sayyid Amir
pardon,
emphasized
pardon
on that.
me, Dr.
No,
This is
please. We are not
directly
we
related
are
Okay,
to
not
okay,
what the
no,
exchanging
topic
views.
was.
no,
No,
no more
Rajawala sir,
discussion. No more
Rajawala sir,
Muslim
we are
discussion.
not exchanging, we are not
a
debating.
Muslim cannot remain a Muslim
Raja
if
Saab,
he
we are
No,
not
Rajawala
debating,
sir,
so please.
well,
Rajawala sir, this is the problem. You start exchanging view. You said your point
you
of
are
view.
talking about Muslims and you cannot separate
I,
Quran from
again,
Muslims.
no, please.
No,
I'm
no, if
not
that's your opinion,
I'm not
fine.
exchanging.
You-
I'm not
I
exchanging views
totally
with you.
disagree with that.
No, yes, of course, I totally agree with you too. But we are not exchanging here. What I am really concerned now, you two senior scientists here came with the theme that Muslims are far behind in science. How come they are not producing anything in 500 years? Here is the reason. Right now, you can see you yourself both totally deviated into religiosity. Science, modern science, as the West has created, zero to do with religion. I must say, zero to do with religion. They all go to church as a Christian on one day. In daily life, hardly they care about that they are Christian or they, and I should also say, I am a very practicing Muslim. I pray all the time. But when I am at NIH, I am just a scientist. And I think about science, not that I should connect that science to God. If we keep on doing this, we will remain as we are. See how obsessive we are in our religiosity. Everything we bring as if we detach this, we are going to be really doing the sin. We are not going to do sin. We
Yeah, but
pray,
Dr.
pray.
Raviuddin, you are pointing out that there is a conflict between Quran and
रजाउल्ला
science.
साहब,
There
आपका
is a
आपका तो
conflict
कमाल
between
है,
Quran
आपका कमाल है,
and
आप
investigation.
हर बात में रिलीजन क्यों लाते हैं भाई?
No, Dr.
आपका
Basheer
काम
Ahmed
यही है कि आप
prevented
रिलीजन क्यों
Islam.
लाते हैं?
He is preventing about Muslims, right? The whole talk is about Muslims.
आप अपनी बात कह चुके हैं ना? आपको क्या
नहीं
प्रॉब्लम
तो
है
भैया,
दूसरे की बात सुनने
यानी
में?
आप ये कहना चाह रहे हैं कि हम कुरान को एक तरफ
नहीं
रख
नहीं,
दें?
मैं कुछ भी कहूँ, आपसे कोई मतलब नहीं.
मुसलमान तो
आपने
ये
अपना
नहीं कर सकता. मुसलमान ये
क्या
नहीं कर सकता. मुसलमान, लेकिन मेरे
आपके
कहना
अकल
ये
में
है
ना,
कि कुरान
Okay,
आपकी
को
so
अकल
कहीं
में
पे कोई
आप
फ्रांसिस
stop
चाहिए
the
नहीं.
crosstalk. Stop the crosstalk.
स्टॉप इट. आप
कहीं पे
फतवा दे
रखते
रहे
हैं.
हैं. नहीं नहीं,
Please,
आप फतवा दे
please,
रहे हैं.
please
आप
stop
फतवा दे
the
रहे हैं, आप मत दिया
discussion.
कीजिए फतवा. आप फतवा देते हैं, आप फतवा मत
नहीं,
दीजिए.
फतवा देने की जरूरत नहीं है. फतवा है नो वैल्यू
आप
फॉर मुस्लिम. फतवे की क्या वैल्यू
नहीं
है,
नहीं
आप
नहीं
बताइए
आप
कुरान से.
नहीं नहीं नहीं.
नहीं,
आप फतवा देते हैं इस तरह से कि आप कमेंट करते हैं एज इफ ऑल मुस्लिम्स मस्ट थिंक द वे यू थिंक. दैट इज नॉट ट्रू. दैट शुड नॉट बी द केस. You
Okay,
keep
so
on insisting.
okay, Razi
You
bhai
keep.
concluded the question and
नहीं
answer.
नहीं,
क्वेश्चन इज
कंक्लूड यही
कुरान
है.
क्या उलमा के लिए आया है
फिर
या
आप
है
कुरान ले
इंसानों
आए.
के लिए, हर इंसान
Raja
के लिए?
Saab,
इट इज
please.
रजा साहब, आप यहाँ कुरान की टीचिंग का ये सेशन नहीं है.
नहीं भाई,
प्लीज,
नहीं भाई, नहीं. हम
ये
तो
कुरान की
कुरान के
टीचिंग का सेशन है.
स्टूडेंट भी नहीं है. हम कहाँ
तो
टीच करेंगे, लेकिन हम ये कह रहे हैं कुरान सब लोगों
आप
के लिए
क्यों
आया है. उसको आप एक तरफ आप
क्यों
में नहीं रख सकते. कोई मुसलमान
आप कस,
कुरान, हाँ.
आप
इसका ये
आप
मतलब
क्यों
नहीं है
कस,
नहीं.
यार कमाल है.
मैं भी साइंटिफिक हूँ. मैंने भी मतलब ये काफी कुछ
आप कस्टोडियन क्यों बन जाते हैं भाई कुरान के या इस्लाम के? आप अपनी बात कह के चुप हो जाए कीजिए. आप कस्टोडियन क्यों बन जाते हैं इस्लाम के?
नहीं तो, लेकिन अब आप ये है ना, आप कंडक्ट करते हैं तो आप फ्लोर अपने हाथ में ले लेते हैं, जो मर्जी आए बोलते हैं. तो ऐसा तो नहीं
देखिए,
होता.
अब ये आप एकदम
नहीं
पर्सनल
तो
हो
भाई
गए.
देखिए, आपने यहाँ कह दिया कि कुरान की बात ही मत कीजिए. भाई
ये
मुसलमान बगैर,
इट इज साइंस सेशन, नथिंग टू डू
हाँ
विथ
तो
कुरान.
ना ऐसा ये कहाँ लिखा? ये पूरी
Okay,
किताब ही इस पे जोर
okay.
है कि साइंस
If
जो
it
है,
if it doesn't
कुरान जो है आपको साइंस के लिए
Allah
If
Akbar.
it doesn't stop, then I am gonna to stop the session. So please, Razi bhai,
Nazir Sahab, Nazir Sahab
I'm
and
there.
Bashir Sahab.
I
Nazir
made my
Sahab and Bashir Sahab, are you preaching Quran here or are you talking about science? पहले आप एक सेकंड में ये बता दीजिए. Are you, what you doing, trying to do?
Yeah, what we are trying to do is does Quran
फिर
and
आपने
Islam
फिर बोलना शुरू कर दिया.
come on the way
यार
of science?
रजाउल्ला साहब, आपसे आप क्यों बोलते हैं?
Where Quran emphasizes you have to think, you have to ponder, you have to use your
आपसे
intellect. This is the Quran that says.
रजाउल्ला साहब, आपसे पूछा जा रहा है. मैं तो नजीर साहब से पूछ रहा हूँ ना.
Okay, I muted him.
Yes, he cannot be stopped. That's the problem. He
So
comes on.
that's
नजीर साहब, आप
that's
नजीर साहब, आप क्यों नहीं इस बात को बोल रहे हैं? What is? Are you scared of saying this word? You have any problem with this, Bashir sahab? What? Why we Muslims are not producing scientists? Why Quran has to come all the time in our laboratories? What is this? यही तो सैयद आमिर साहब ने पूछा है. यही रफत भी पूछ रहे हैं. We are the Sir Sayyid children asking you directly why Quran must come in our laboratories. And if it is not coming, are we become sinful Muslims? What is this? Or maybe this is the reason that's why we are not producing science.
That is correct, and
I think this
agree.
is
So
the reason that Sir Sayyid never said a single word while or promoting anything in Aligarh about religion. He's just put the word modern education in MAO college to become a university, put science separate than Islam. And he was very clear into that. We don't need this lecture on religion here in science. We need a lecture on religion separately. In science, what is this continuous meeting science? The scientists are doing research to have something, a mechanism about a medicine or about a disease, nothing to do with religion. क्यों इसमें हम लोग का प्रॉब्लम क्या है?
okay, so
then,
unfortunately, we did not reach any consensus. We keep bring. There are two different opinions
and
about.
then Rajaullah Sahab comes and he personalizes things and he says, he brings the Quran as if others are not Muslim here, not practicing here. All the time he says about religion. I mean,
Okay.
is this a debate on religion here?
Okay, Razi bhai, thank you so much for your time. I know you are busy with the family. You are visiting India. So it was great to hear both the speakers and Dr. Razi
So
Uddin.
can I make comments?
Yeah, please go ahead quickly and then.
Yeah, I think you have about 5 minutes. So I really enjoyed the presentation, discussions, fantastic. It's a kind of educational, I think I'm repeating what other people have said. In terms of, I think there's everybody kind of multiple, we are all within individuals, we have multiple personalities, religion, science, everything embedded within us. I think this is the manifestation of what Dr. Basheer Ahmed, one fantastic book that looks to me. I think that one of the things I was thinking about, given the history, the glorious history of Muslim Arab scholars. So we are in this phase. So in terms of not reproducing high intellectuals and the scientific stars. So how do you, what is this? Is this kind of futuristic kind of thing one has to look into? But I think you may, since you have read the history, I didn't, because I think it's important for, I think you may have some sort of solutions, both of you, both Basheer Ahmed and Dr. Basheer Ahmed. So I think it's really congratulations on your book. I think we look forward to reading it some point. I think it's very important for you're doing a great service to the community in terms of bringing this history to students, young generation students, for inspiration. Good luck with that. That are my comments. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Jabbar Saab. That concludes the session. And thank you again, both the speaker, Dr. Ahmed and Dr. Ahmed. Both of them wonderful. And thank you so much, Nadir Saab, for covering some part of it. And we really appreciate it. And thanks to all the participants, the audience who participated in the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you so much. And it digresses, no doubt. And when it digresses to other things, it is never very conducive. And it was supposed to be, it is supposed to be on one topic, science. And science and how Muslims failed into that. That absolutely nothing to do in anything else. And we should continue for other sessions also pure on science and nothing to do with anything else. So if we do, we will do a good service to our own community. But if we get into this confused state, we keep on doing the disservice and we are not ending up in anywhere. Look at what happened here. We are totally confused and we are really divided. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, what Dr. Raziuddin is saying is that anything that Dr. Basheer Ahmed quoted from the Quran was not according to his intention of this session. This is what you are saying. He did not have brought Quran at all.
No, I think you people like you can make many people very confused. You keep you have one point agenda. You have one point agenda. You keep on bringing religion, and as if the religion alone.
Why did Dr. Basheer Ahmed's book talks about from Quran? He quoted all the verses from Quran, and you're saying you should not.
No, you couldn't take it. You couldn't take it. Dr. Basheer was very clear that what in Quran there are things to think about. Think, and you don't think. You are just taking those things which is in the Dua far.
Okay.
In the Dua far.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That there are 70, 80 verses which emphasize, think, ponder.
And unfortunately, we are not thinking. No. Yeah, we are not thinking. We are totally unthinkable.
I agree on that. We are not thinking. We are not thinking Muslim. We are just ritualistic. That I agree.
Go for dinner and
Rajaullah sir, please do one thing. Don't consider all Muslim with the same kind of brain that you have. We are not clones of each other.
No, but
your thinking
my point was the Muslims should relate. If you relate to the Quran, you will not find a conflict with the science.
Unfortunately, your understanding of Quran differs with my understanding of Quran. That is the difference.
Yeah.
That is very clear difference.
Yeah, we need to remain focused.
No. No, I agree. First, I agree. We all Muslims are not cloned to each other in our thinking. First, I agree that. I agree it. And also, I agree is this thing that your understanding of Quran could be very different from mine.
I fully agree.
First,
and
then there is no.
Then we agree to disagree. Fine.
Yeah. Then there is no problem.
Everybody would not understand the same way. Just like you are wearing a different clothes, I'm wearing a different clothes. So
very true. Your Islam is very.
Finally, we agree on something.
Razi bhai.
No, we don't agree.
No,
we don't agree.
You don't agree that we can have different understandings?
Yeah.
Yes. So we agree on that. I agree on that.
So did you
with agreement rather than disagreement?
Or Razi bhai, can you please disconnect now? So before it gets
I have to go too.
Yeah,
So,
please.
Oh,
Thank you.
thank you.
Jazakumullah khair
Thank,
for the session. Assalamu alaikum.
thank you. Thank
Walaikum
you.
salam.
Assalamu
Thank
alaikum.
you
First.
once again.
Thank you.
That's what the Muslims